How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Beis, Daf 42 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends, your friends. Let me tell you, Epis. Where are we? Alright, let me tell you, Epis. Parts of this Daf are extremely geschmack, and parts of it I don't really understand fully, maybe. We'll get to it when we get there. But it should be a very pleasant job. Daf. Let's go weiter. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph, Hamafkid Mos Eitzel Chavero. Shimon deposits money with Ruvain. Soron v'vshilan la'achorov. And then Ruvain takes the money and he bundles it up and he maybe puts it like in his satchel and throws it over his shoulder. Or he gave it to his son or his daughter who are minors. And then I guess locked it with them, but improperly. Basically the point is he was irresponsible. So chayiv. He's chayiv if anything happens to it. Because he wasn't guarding properly. What's going on? I feel like I don't know. Hopefully there's no problems here. But if there is a problem, I have my backup recording. I haven't had to use it yet. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't really want to use it because the quality won't be as good, and also I don't know how I'm going to sync the video with the sound. But all right. Anyways. I have my backup. It helps to know that I have a backup just in case there are problems with the audio. But if he did watch the way that the custodians watch, like the industry standard watching, like the industry standard for watching, well then he's potter if anything happens to it. Alright, fine. Bishlama, says the Gemara, Kulu Shaloshim Kederech Hashem. Okay, fine. So I understand he gave it to his kids. He didn't lock the room properly. Okay, I get it. He was irresponsible. But I don't understand what's the problem with like putting it in like a satchel and like throwing it behind his back. I wear a book bag all the time. That's basically how I get around with stuff, If I'm going someplace with my computer or something, I throw it in my book bag, throw it behind my back, and go weiter. What's irresponsible about that? Omar Rove, says Rove, Omar Bitzchok, Omar Krovit, Sarta Kesef Biyodecho. Biyodcho? Excuse me. Biyodcho. Vitzarta Kesef Biyodcho. It says by Meiser Sheni, I think, that you'll bundle the money in your hand. Afabishat Srurin, even though they're bundled, Yehu Biyodcho. They should be in your hand, not thrown behind your back. Okay, I guess that would have been considered, I guess in this context, to be somewhat irresponsible. He should be holding on to it if he's a custodian for them. The Omer Rabbi Yitzchok says, Rabbi Yitzchok, Le'olam yehei kaspo shel udam motzui biyado. A person should always have his money liquid. He should have money available. What does Rashi say? Rashi says, second line of Rashi, Motzu biyado lo yafkidenu lacherim. You shouldn't deposit it with others, b'makom acher, who are some other place. She'im tizdamin lo schora liskor yehei mezumen lo. Right, that if he has an opportunity for a business opportunity to buy epis, he should have money available. Right, he shouldn't have all of his money tied up in a place where he doesn't have access to them. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, v'tzarta kesef biyodcho, that you should have the money available in your hands. From Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yitzchak l'olam yashlish odom es ma'osav. Rabbi Yitzchak advises that a person should always divide up his money into three categories. Shlish bekarke, v'shlish bepakmati, v'shlish tachas yodo. 1/3 of his money should be invested in property. 1/3 of it should be invested in business and in merchandise. And 1/3 of it should be invested, you should have it available. It sounds like basically like I guess your portfolio. He's saying you should invest 1/3 in real estate, 1/3 in like stocks, and 1/3 should be cash. Something like that. Alright. So now okay, so interesting, right? Meaning a second ago he said that, what did he say a second ago? A person should always have his money available. And then he says, well, only a third of it should be available, 2/3 of it should be invested. But you always should have money available so that if there's an opportunity, you can take advantage. Fine. V'amar B'Yitzchak says, B'Yitzchak, in Abracha Metzia, ele b'dover asamu min ha'oyin. This is gewaldig. That blessing is found in things that are hidden from the eye. Let's go weiter. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Yitzav Hashem itchos habrocha ba'asomecha, that the Eibishter will command with you a blessing ba'asomecha. I think it was you like granaries and stuff, but it means davar asamui min ha'ayim, things that are hidden from the eye. We'll go weiter. We can discuss it in a minute. Tanav Rabbi Shmuel, Etan b'smedrash Rabbi Shmuel, in a bracha mitzuya ela b'davar she'ena ayin sholetes bo. That blessing is found in things that you don't necessarily see. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Yitzav Hashem itchos habrocha ba'asomecha. I think he's saying the same thing basically, that the Eibishter will provide with you a blessing in your the things that are hidden to you. And I think that this next bit kind of gives a little bit of explanation of what this could mean. So a person who's on his way to measure his granary, to see what he's got there, see how much inventory he has, see how much stock he has. So before he goes and before he measures it, so Omer, he says, Yiratzon milfanecha, Hashem Elokeinu shetishach bracha b'ma'aseh yadeinu. May people, the will before you, God, that you should send blessing in the work of our hands. That he's on his way to kind of measure the sort of results of the work of his hands. And before he measures it, he davens that hopefully, there will be blessing found. His chilamud, he begins to measure, and he says, Baruch hashaleach broche b'chri hazeh. Blessed is one who sends blessing in this pile. Modad v'achar kach beirach. If he measured, once it's already measured, he blesses. When it's already counted, when it's already quantified, at this point, it is a prayer that's in vain, because blessing is not found as something that is weighed or measured, or counted, something hidden from the eye. It says that the Eibishter will send blessing in the things that are, or in this context, in the things that are hidden. Yeah, I feel like, I guess, like, for me, like, I kind of understood this as like, almost like if you're like counting your pennies kind of thing, it's like, bless, chill out from like the nickel and diming and like figuring out, did we get this one or that one or the other thing? Like, when there's blessing, you're not like super focused on like, this or that, or, there'll be lots of shefa, so much, right? Kichol hayom shelo yisafar l'rov, right? The Yidden are compared, right? The blessing that the Eibishter gives to Avraham Avinu is not that you should have, this amount of offspring. You shall have so many asher lo yisafar l'rov, they can't even be counted, right? So I don't know, for me that's like kind of how I understood it, right? It's like blessing is not, if you can count it, then already it's limited, right? But the blessing is found on things that are like unlimited, right? Before you've counted, measured your granary, when everything's in potential, when things have not yet been quantified, that's when there's a opportunity for blessing. And even while you're counting it, right? It says you start it, you could still bless, but like once already you've like put a number on it, then already it's limited in some sense. So God willing, we should all have so much blessing that it's uncounted, and that it just kind of comes and is growing, and it's clear to all of us that we have lots and lots of blessing, that we don't need a kind of nickel and dime and count, but that there's just so much of it and it's just flowing. Amr Shmuel says, Ksafim ein loim shmira elo b'karke. Says Shmuel, so money is only considered guarded in the ground, right? So when Shmuel deposits money with Reuven needs to take that money and put it in the ground, store it away over there. That way it'll be safe. He buries it. Rava says, Rava Modi Shmuel, but Shmuel admits that Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes, if it's right before Shabbos, Shimon stops by Reuven's house right before Shabbos and gives him money to deposits with him money, that he doesn't need to now go outside and start digging holes in his backyard right before Shabbos. And if a Motzoi Shabbos, he's sitting around doing nothing, and when he could be burying the money, and he's messing around for long enough that he could have buried the money and he didn't, mechayev. Well, at that point, if anything happens to the money, then he's chayev because he's not guarding them properly. Now, if Shimon, the depositor, is a Talmud Chacham, so then I can understand why Reuven didn't immediately bury it after Shabbos, because Reuven thought, oh, well, maybe Shimon's going to come by and he's going to want his money for Avdallah to pay for wine and stuff, to buy wine. So, if I bury it into the ground, it will be inconvenient. So that's why. So then then he doesn't have to bury it immediately. Now, but nowadays, where the people know, the Shmendriks know that, oh yeah, people put money in the ground, so they start looking for buried treasure. So so don't bury them in the ground anymore, because that's actually not going to be well protected. And instead, you should put them in your attic. Put them in the beams of your roof. But nowadays, that people know that the people keep money in their roofs, and they're poking around in people's attics, saying loim shmira elo beinei urve. So you have to keep them in between the bricks. Shmuel says you can even put it somehow like in the wall, even if it's not like in the bricks or something. But now that there are people who know this and they start poking around the walls, saying it's only considered guarded if you put the money in the wall, like close to the ground, or close to the ceiling, to the roof, because that's where the wall is going to be strongest and people won't be able to poke through as good. Interesting. We learned by chometz. That if you have chometz, and of course you have to destroy the chometz. What if you have chometz and then the house collapses on the chometz? So it's considered like it's already destroyed. Don't worry about it. You don't have to go after it. You don't have to find it. So long as a dog would not be able to access this chometz, so then don't worry about it. How much is considered where a dog would be able to get it? Gimel tvachim. 3 tfachim, right? So if you have the chometz 3 tfachim deep in the, buried, so then a dog would not be able to sniff it out and go for it. So what about over here by money, right? When we said that you have to bury the money in the ground, how deep we talking? Does it need to be 3 tfachim like chometz? Oh, low or not? Amarlei. So Rashi responds also mishum reicha ba'inun gimel tfachim acha mishum ichsuye me'ena lo ba'inun gimel tfachim. So Rashi says, by chometz, we have to make sure that the dog won't be able to sniff it out, so you have to bury it deep enough, and that's 3 tfachim. Over here, we're not concerned about the smells, we're concerned about a shmendrik finding it. So there, it just needs to be hidden. As long as it's hidden, even 1 tefach would be enough, as long as you can't see it. V'cham Amar Rav from Misichra tefach. Says Rav from Sichra, we're talking about a tefach. Okay. Shimon deposited money with Reuben. Reuben took the money and put it in a willow hut. Now, the thing about a willow hut is that vis-a-vis thieves, it's considered protected. Okay, if the money is put in the hut, the thieves won't get it. But a hut is flammable, and therefore it's irresponsible to put the money in this willow hut, because it's considered something that's, I guess, can easily burn down, and the money will be burnt down with it. So therefore, it's irresponsible. So even though it's protected from thieves, it's nonetheless irresponsible to put money in one of these willow huts, because it could end up getting incinerated. So Osvinu b'tzrifa du'orbinei. Nonetheless, Reuven put the money in one of these willow huts. Ignuv, and they didn't get burnt down, which is the concern. They actually got stolen, which is not generally a concern in a willow hut. Omer of Yosef, it says of Yosef, Afagadlin ganove nitirusahi, even though they were considered protected from thieves, and therefore this would be considered an ones, because it was protected from thieves, and even so, it got stolen. But nonetheless, It was still a negligent thing for Reuven to have done, to put it in a willow hut because there's a fire hazard there. So this is an example of Reuven initially being negligent, even though ultimately it wasn't his negligence that was the issue. It was an ones. Chayav, nonetheless, he is chayav, because tchilasu b'pshia v'sofa ba'ones is chayav. Those who say some say fakert, that even though with regard to fire he was irresponsible, but the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is, it was considered in a protected area vis-a-vis theft. So therefore, initially he was irresponsible because of the fire hazard, but ultimately it got stolen, which was unexpected. Potter, therefore he's potter, because ultimately it was something unexpected that happened. The halacha lemaise is that tchilasu b'pshia v'sof ba'ones is chayiv. Interesting. Shimon deposited money with Reuven. And Reuven and Shimon then says to Reuven, okay, I want my money back. And Reuven says, you won't believe it, I Pashit don't know where they are. I forgot where they are. I don't know where they are, Pashit. They came before Rava, and Rava says, look, Reuven, I don't know, is negligent, and therefore you have to pay Shimon the money for being negligent. Shimon deposited money with Reuven, and Reuven then forwarded the money to his mother. And she put it in a chest, and they got stolen. And Rava says, I'm perplexed. How should judges judge this case? If we say to Reuven, you're responsible, you have to pay Shimon because you shouldn't have given it to your mother. But we learned the other day, Reuven's going to say that when Shimon gives me the money, the assumption is that he's giving it to me, and I can give it to my mother, I can give it to my wife, I can give it to my adult kids, right? That he's giving it to me to protect. I could have my immediate family also keep an eye on it. So Reuven says that there was nothing wrong with me giving the money to my mother. Nema lo the email. Okay, so if we confront his mother, Zili Shlimi, and say, okay, pay. Omer, she's going to say, wait, lo Omerli, delabdi de ninu. I didn't know that this was not my son's money. I didn't know that this money was Shimon's money. The akbrinu, that I should bury them as a custodian. So Nema le amaylo omartlo. So okay, so let's say to Reuven, why don't you tell your mother that it's Shimon's money and that she should bury it? Omar, Reuven says, well, I thought I was doing the responsible thing by not telling her, because kol shekin dechi amina la dedidi ninu tfei mizdarabu. I figured, look, she doesn't care about Shimon. I'm sure she does, but her son, if she thinks that I'm depositing all this money with her, I figured that would be the better protection. I say, okay, can you watch this for my friend, for Shimon? Okay, she'll watch it, but can you watch it for me? She'll then for sure she's going to take care of it super good. So what do we do? Right? It's like look, there was an unfortunate situation. The money was stolen. Nobody was particularly irresponsible over here. Reuven was allowed to give it to his mother. He also didn't tell her that it was Shimon's because he Dafka thought that would be she would take care of it better. She says, look, I didn't know it was Shimon's. If so, I would have buried it like I was supposed to, but I didn't know it was his. I was guarding it in the way that, in the way that I thought was best. But, I didn't bury it. It then got stolen. So, where am I? So, Amar Rava, Elo Amar Rava. So says Rava, Mishtaba iu dehanu zuze ashlaminu li'ime. Okay, so Reuven Pashut swears that he gave the money to his mother, which he was allowed to do. Umishtaba ime, and his mother swears, then she swears that she put the money in this chest and she was watching it, ve'ignuv, and they got stolen nonetheless, ufater, and then they are both potter. So now this next example is an interesting example. I can't say that I totally understand the maskana, but alright, who knows, maybe it'll somehow, we'll get some clarity on it in the future somehow. Maybe as we learn more of BavaMetzia and understand things better, maybe we can make more sense of this. But it's an interesting scenario nonetheless. How apitropi de yasme. Okay, so they were orphans, right? They were orphans, and who's going to take care of their estate? So the court appoints a apitropis, a representative, who's going to represent them. Okay, so apitropi de yasme, there was this apitropis, this zovan lehu Torah liasme, okay, and he bought for them a cow. Okay, fine. He bought a cow with their money, and okay, I guess that was considered something beneficial for them, and that's what he did. Umasr lebakare, he gave it to a herdsman. I think maybe a cow watcher guy, a cow taker care of, a cow taker carer, a guy who takes care of cows. Lo avalei koche v'shinei. Now, what was peculiar about this particular cow, it had no teeth. Lo hava koche v'shinei lemechol. Pasha couldn't eat. There were no teeth. Vamis, and predictably it died. Now what? How should the judges judge this case? If we tell the apitrope, zil shlim, you're responsible. You have to pay back the orphans, the estate. Look, I gave the cow to a cow watcher guy. I gave it to him because I'm not the expert over here. I gave it to him, said he would take care of it. And he failed on that mission, on that responsibility. Namely, the vakar zil shlim. Okay, so if we go to the cow watcher guy, say, okay, you were irresponsible, you have to pay. Omar onabade Torah akamte. He says, look, I treated this cow like I treated every other cow. I put the cow together with all the other cows. Ochla shadoile. And I threw food in front of all of them. There was plenty of food to eat. Lo hava yodinon de lo ochal. I didn't realize that this particular cow wasn't eating. Look, my responsibility is I take the cows, I treat them all equally, I make sure that they're fed, that they have what they need. Well, I didn't realize that one cow wasn't eating. Alright, fine. So what do you do? What do you do? You confront the apotropis. He says, look, I did what I was supposed to. I gave it to a responsible cow watcher guy. And you go to the cow watcher guy, he says, well, I did what I had to do. I gave them all food. They're well fed. I didn't realize that there was one particular cow who wasn't eating and then suddenly dropped dead. So michdei. So let's see. Bakara shomesacha diasmiu. Well, the cow herdsman guy is being paid to take care of the cow. So he's a shomer sacher. As a shomer sacher, somebody's being paid to watch the cow. He needs to pay attention. It's his fault. So the Gemara says, you're right, but here's the thing. Look, if the orphans actually in fact did lose out, then you'd be right. But that actually the orphans are just fine over here because they found the initial seller, the cowmonger who sold them the cow to begin with. And they said, hey, you sold us a cow without teeth. That was an improper sale. Give us our money back. And they get their money back. So the orphans are fine. If the orphans weren't fine, then yeah, they'd be able to go after the cow watcher guy. But the orphans are fine. They got their money back from the cowmonger. Elaman katoin. So then, who's making a claim over here? Mari de Torah katoin, the cowmonger. The cowmonger was just forced to give the money back to the orphans. The cow that he sold them is dead, and he's in a bind. So he's coming to the apotropis, and he says to the apotropos, "Iboile lo duon," that you should have told me that I sold you a cow without teeth. My modainale. What do you mean we have to tell the cowmonger? Didn't the cowmonger? I mean, is he? How does he not know that the cow that he sold doesn't have any teeth? That should be pretty obvious. Well, he's a broker. He's buying and selling all the time. It's not like he raised and put his heart and soul into this cow. And how did he know that it did not have teeth? He bought the cow that morning. He sold it that afternoon. He deals with bulk. He doesn't know exactly what's going on with every single cow. So here's what I don't understand. So I figured so what? If he's selling something, shouldn't it still be his responsibility? That's what I don't I would think it's his fault. He should be responsible for selling something faulty. But the Gemara doesn't say that, which is that's why I kind of feel I don't know. I feel I have to understand this a little bit better. It's a lot. Maybe I feel there's a lot of details here. Anyways, Hilkach mishtaba iu telo avayada. So the cowmonger swears that he did not know about the toothless condition. Umishalim bakarit me basa bezol, and the cow watcher guy pays the cowmonger, but not fully. He pays 2/3 the value, right? The value of cheap meat, 2/3 of the price. Maybe it's because Rashi talks about how this would be compared to the scenario that we had maybe last week about Shimon rents his cow to Ruvain, who then lends it to Levi. So we said that in that, and then wait, what did I say? Shimon, remember, all right, it's a confusing case, right? Just bringing it up already gets confusing. Shimon rented the cow to Reuven, who lent it to Levi. So we say if the cow drops dead, so Shimon is off the hook. And we said ultimately Rabbi Yossi says that Levi needs to pay. No, I'm sorry, Reuven is off the hook, right? The renter is off the hook because we treat him like a shomer sachar, he's patur for ones. Levi, the borrower, needs, so according to Rabbi Yossi, who we paskin Levi, the borrower, needs to pay Shimon. So maybe the idea is that, on the one hand, in our case, by the cowmonger, you could say he sold something faulty, but in this case, he sold it to the orphans, but the orphans already got back their money. So on the one hand, this whole thing, right, the root cause over here is the cowmonger sold a faulty product. But that product, right, that cow was sold to the orphans, who then kind of sent it off to the cow watcher guy to watch. So now it feels like it's between, so it's no longer about, I don't know, maybe somehow the sale between the cowmonger and the orphans kind of goes away because the orphans are out of the picture, and now it's just sort of the cowmonger and the cow watcher guy figuring it out amongst themselves, I guess. I don't know, something like that. Anyways. So this one also is I don't know, there's a detail over here that I'm a little bit wishy-washy in as well. But anyways, so Shimon deposited hops with Reuven, hops for making beer. Now Reuven had his own pile of hops. And Reuven says to his attendant who works in his brewery, look, take from this pile, meaning his own pile, take from this pile, also idach. But what the attendant did was, he ended up using Shimon's hops, the hops that were deposited with him. Says Rav Am, what do we do over here? If we tell Ruvain, you're responsible to pay Shimon for the hops. He says, what do you mean? I did what I was supposed to do. I told the attendant, take from this pile, from my pile. Namely the Sarsei, but if he says to the attendant, Zil Shlim, okay, so you pay Shimon. Amar lo. So wait, what? Amar le. Oh, I'm sorry. So Amar. So the attendant responds. He says, "I'm not paying." Lo Amar li mehai remi mehai lo tirmi. Reuven never told me, take from this pile, don't take from that pile. So if I didn't know Davka not to take from that pile. So now here's the thing that's a little bit funny. Okay, I think what it's saying, maybe, I don't know, it might be like missing a detail here, is that if the attendant kind of took enough time adding the hops to the beer, it was more time than it would have taken. Here's the thing. Shimon's pile, the deposited pile, was closer to like the brewing situation than Reuven's hops pile. So if the attendant, it took him the amount of time that it would have taken to get to Shimon's pile, the deposited pile, and then and add it to the brewing stuff. And I guess the point is that Reuven acknowledged that it was not enough time for him to have gotten to his own stuff. So clearly then it must have been from Shimon's, and Reuven didn't care, right? Again, so v'ideh shah shir le'isuye le v'lo aisile. Sorry. It's fakert. If his own hops were closer, if his own hops were closer, and the attendant took longer than it would have taken to have gotten Reuven's hops, and Reuven didn't say anything, meaning that I guess the assumption is that Reuven knew that he was walking over to Shimon's hops that were further away, and he didn't say anything. Well, then Reuven's basically acknowledging that he's using Shimon's hops, and that would be problematic. Right, so again, if it took long enough for the attendant to get the hops, that was more than enough time for the attendant to have gotten the hops from Reuven's hops. Velo aisile, right? He didn't bring it within that amount of time. So then gali adaite dinichale. So then, if that's the case, then Reuven is basically acknowledging that the attendant is taking the hops from Shimon's hops, and if Reuven doesn't say anything about it, well then I guess that would be a problem. So it's bidelo shah, but I guess somehow he didn't take that. I don't know. What does that mean? Like it didn't take that much time. Maybe he moved quickly or something? I don't know. So I guess Reuven, there was no reason for Reuven to have like realized that that the attendant was taking Shimon's hops. So again, what do you do? Back to the original question. Reuven had told the attendant, take from his pile, from this pile. The attendant says, yeah, but you didn't say don't take from the other pile, so what do? So we say though, that sof might say the ika. We say, wait a second, people, at the end of the day, who cares? He's making beer with it. So who cares? Reuven's making beer. He used hops. At the end of the day, he used the hops for a productive purpose. He now has beer. Okay, fine. So he used Shimon's hops. So replace them with his own hops. Like who cares? You know, if Shimon had like a kilo of hops over there, and Reuven's attendant took the hops from Shimon's, not from his own, and put it in the beer. Like, oh darn, oops. Okay, let me just take hops from my pile and I'll just put it in Shimon's pile. Like, who really cares? So Amarav Sama Brei Derava Dahava Shichra Chala. Well, unfortunately, the batch didn't work out so good. The beer became vinegar, and he didn't actually benefit from it. Rav Ashi Amar B'kisei, Mushalam Leid Mekisei. Alternatively, I guess maybe I think what it's saying is that Shimon's hops weren't very good hops, so therefore, like they weren't, it didn't really create, it didn't really create such a good beer. So I guess it would have to be replaced to Shimon, and I guess the question is, who's responsible to replace that value? Right, because like it didn't work out ultimately, so Shimon just Pasha needs to be paid back, and who's going to pay him back? Is the question. I don't think we actually answered though what the answer is, right? Yes, I guess I'm not like super unclear like who actually pays. It sounds like, okay, so Shimon would have to get paid back. But again, if you say to Reuven to pay, he's going to say, well, I told him not to take it. If you say to the tenant to pay, he's going to say, well, you didn't tell me not to take it. So I guess maybe it's like unresolved. Is that the correct way to answer it, to understand it? Peace.